So, all that aside, all the opening things aside, I am delighted to welcome Sarah Whalen, who will introduce herself, and then I'll introduce myself, and we'll dive right in. So, Sarah, tell everybody who you are.
Hey, I'm Sarah. I'm the author of This Doesn't Mean Anything, and I'm really excited to be here tonight.
And I'm Cody Daigle Oriens, also known on the internet as Ace Dad Advice. I am the author of a book myself. My book, I Am Ace, Advice on Living Your Best Asexual Life, just came out in February. And I'm thrilled to be here talking to Sarah. So we're going to dive right in. First of all, I wanted for the folks in the audience who have come for either one of us to set up our books a little and talk about what our books are, because they're while they do have a lot of like similar things in spirit, they're very different books. So Sarah, tell us about your book.
Yeah, so This Doesn't Mean Anything is a new adult college romance following a girl as she navigates not only her first year of college, but figuring out what asexuality is and what that means for her relationships, because she's an alloromantic and still wants a romantic relationship, but she has this complicated relationship with sex that no one really talks about.
Cool. And my book is called I Am Ace. Show everybody the cover. Well, do you have your book handy? Of course you
Uh,
have your book
it
handy.
might be flipped, but this
Yeah.
is yours.
Yeah.
And this is
And
mine.
that's Sarah's. Yeah. See, this is real funny. Sarah has a copy of my book handy, but I do not have a copy of mine handy. Um, I'm a bad writer. My book, I Am Ace, Advice on Living Your Best Asexual Life, is a young adult focused nonfiction book that is aimed to be a resource to people who are new to asexuality or who are in the beginning parts of their asexual journey. So it's meant to be a helpful guidebook that both is lots of information, but also lots of advice and encouragement to, as the book title says, live your best asexual life, which every one of us should do. So, Sarah, I wanted you to know a little bit about the how that book came to be and what was your inspiration for tackling this particular story.
I'm about to expose myself to all of my lovely friends in the chat, but basically, I was inspired because during my first year of college was also when I was doing a lot, and then really the only way you meet people is on like dating apps. And I quickly realized that whenever one of my prospective people would bring up sex, it would just make me extremely uncomfortable. I felt like I needed to like vomit. I couldn't figure out why I had such a visceral reaction to this kind of thing. And I had a lot of people that I don't speak to anymore basically tell me, you're going to have to put out eventually. Like, what are you like? And I hated myself for the longest time. So it really came from just never wanting someone else to go through that kind of, I went to a very deep depression and trying to, because this was a couple of years ago, but asexuality has bloomed online,
Hmm.
and the resources that are available today, if I had had them back then, would have helped so much. But now I'm just trying to contribute to that canon and hope that no one else goes through what I did.
I love that because it's fun for me to hear you say that because I've said the exact same thing in kind of talking about my book too. So, my book is nonfiction, but it comes from the Ace Dad Advice project that I've been doing for the last couple of years. But certainly in sitting down to write the book, what I was thinking about is like, what's the book that I could have used when I was 18 so that I wouldn't have spent, because I came out very late. I wouldn't have spent 20 years not knowing myself, and I wouldn't have spent 20 years feeling bad about myself. What would be the book? What would that book look like that would have helped me so that other people don't have to go through that? Um, what I really love is that is the impetus, the idea of like I want to make things easier for people, like give them to empower them in that way. I love that you chose fiction for one, and like a romance story. I love that you chose genre to do it. Why a romance for that endeavor?
Um, I really enjoy romance books. It's primarily the genre that I read now, but it was also extremely important to me for other aces to realize that they can have whatever relationship that they want. It's out there. There's going to be someone, who's going to respect them and not love them despite, maybe you won't. put out, or maybe you're only going to put out very rarely. I really wanted other aces to know that it's possible, and if it exists in fiction, you're gonna find in real life because a lot of it is based on real life.
I love that. I love that. I love that if it exists in fiction, it can exist in real life. Like if we can imagine it, then we can make it happen. And I think that is like that's a beautiful, beautiful idea. So something that in both of our projects that I think is important, and not just in our projects, but I also, as I mentioned this before we started, that it's something that I think is true about both of our online presences too, is the notion of ace joy, that seeing people find happiness and seeing people be ace and joyful, seeing people be ace and fulfilled, ace and happy is important. And I wanted to know why. One, how do you respond? Like, how does that feel for you, and how does that like fit into the way when you sit down to work? Where does ace joy fit in, and how is it important to you to center ace joy in your work?
Um, so with Ace Joy, I always find I want to center it in the sense of like casual. Um, for this particular book, obviously, sort of accepting asexuality is the theme, but I want eventually for there to be books where this character is asexual. It has nothing to do with the plot. This is how their relationship works. You read books all the time, and they mention allo relationships, and there's no comment on it. There's no, hey, that's weird. And again, I was miserable for the longest time. I didn't think I could be in a loving relationship, and I am. And I just want that for other people. I never want someone to settle because they're afraid of being alone, because I was that person that was terrified there was something wrong with me. There's a point in my book where my main character talks about researching sex repulsion because I didn't know the term for that. And the DSM-5 came up for me.
Mm.
And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is something that doesn't seem like it would be I need to treat it. And so I think by allowing us to create these stories where asexual characters are just allowed to exist and be ace is super important. You don't have to struggle with, you know, your relationship to sex if you don't want to. You don't have to. And if someone is making you feel uncomfortable, you don't need them. That was also something really important to me. Because people can say they accept you and that they love you, but there's always that hint of what if they're only doing that because they know eventually you might put out, and that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, it makes me think of something that I think about a lot, like in terms of kind of there's often a sense that like whenever we are expected to be visible as ace people, we're expected to talk about how hard it is. We're expected to talk about why it hurts or why it's bad or why we have terrible experiences, when I think it is enormously important for us to also talk about aceness through a lens of being joyful and through a lens of being happy. Like I'm ace and in relationships with two very lovely humans who are allo. Like it's possible, and I have a lot of happiness there. So it isn't it shouldn't always be the expectation that we are going to just tell stories about how hard things are in order to sort of be allowed space. We should also be allowed space whenever we are talking about what makes us happy and how asexuality is a positive in our lives. Yeah, and for I am ace, there's a whole chapter about ace joy in it, and just throughout it was just very important to me to not just write a book that was informational, that it wasn't just so here's what ace means, here's what the micro labels mean, but also to write about like here's how you then take that and go out into the world and live a life that you enjoy. So you can be ace and be in relationships if you want, or if you don't want, that's also fine too. You can just be like a super happy ace single person moving through the world hanging out with your friends. But it was very important to like always in the book return to uh, asexuality not being a liability and not being something that is a burden or something to apologize for, but something to celebrate.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely got that vibe and I really appreciated it. Because this brings up something that comes up a lot in like when we talk about ace relationships is that a lot of baby aces, myself included, I thought I was gonna have to like find another ace person to understand. And back when I was trying to date, there was one asexual dating app. It had like a cake logo. I don't know if you've been on it, but there were very little people on there, no one near me. And so I thought, oh no, I'm going to have to like find another ace person. And I didn't. My partner's aloe. But I really wanted to bring home this idea that my main character's partner doesn't care. Like it's not a conflict that this person has to like overcome. There's no barrier in their mind about the asexuality being an issue for their relationship at all. Like and I made a TikTok about this, but he is not special for doing that. And
mhm.
I've gotten messages from readers, saying it's all they've ever wanted. And it breaks my heart when they say, when he just respects your boundaries and he doesn't care. And that's the bare minimum. And I feel for every single person who's sent me one of those messages because I was there too. I was like, oh my gosh, this person, doesn't care. This person loves me, and it's not despite or in spite of, like this is just a part of me, like my hair is a part of me. And again, they don't feel like they're special for doing, like they don't make it seem like they're doing me a favor by being okay with everything. And that was something I really wanted other aces again to know. You don't have to settle for someone that makes you feel like you're a charity case essentially.
Yeah, I talk a lot about not treating your not having to apologize for your like don't go into relationships apologizing for your aceness beforehand or ever. It's not something to apologize for. And I love that like respecting boundaries and respecting who a person is, though I would be calling it like that's the bare minimum. That should be that's the lowest bar of entry possible in a relationship. That's not a necessarily special thing. Have you gotten responses from people who have read the book that have have said that's unrealistic? I'm just curious if you've gotten any like pushback for how positive and empowered that take is.
Um, Me personally, I haven't gotten that, but I just think it hasn't reached quite the size audience that would come. I'm not big enough for haters yet, but I know that it's something that like my fellow ace writers have experienced is like they're told the relationship is unrealistic. And if someone comes at me with that, I'm going to say it's not unrealistic because I am experiencing that. A lot of ace people are experiencing ace aloe relationships that respect their boundaries like a regular aloe relationship. Like there's no coercion involved. Like aces do feel they do have a little bit of a barrier, and we do go through the world with a little bit harder of a time because of our relationship to sex and how we view things and our attraction. But it's at the core, it's the same thing. Talk about boundaries. Be super detailed when you talk about your boundaries. That is not something that is specific to ace relationships. And I think the more people normalize being okay with a sexless relationship, I think it's going to help a lot of people because I do think that our allonormative society sort of pushes that, especially if like you're a mask person, you're expected to sort of be the be the person that is constantly initiating things because you're supposed to want it all the time. And there are mask ace people, and they are the same. They're like, I don't want sex. I don't want to be pressured into wanting it. It's like like it's like teenagers talking about their conquest or whatever because they think it'll up their social cred when really we shouldn't even be looking at that.
Yeah, I love I love that attitude that it's that the expectations that we have as ace people in an ace aloe relationship should be the same as like aloe relationships are, because a good relationship is a good relationship. And yeah, like I love that idea. And it's interesting to me that the way that you're talking about like the way you're writing relationships and the way that you see them mirror the way that in I am Ace the chapter, but also like I'm writing a relationship, an Ace and Arrow relationship book right now, and like I'm going like, yes, I'm echoing the same thing. That's what I'm writing, and we should absolutely feel like um we shouldn't feel like we have to enter relationships with a different under different rules, because like a good relationship is a good relationship no matter who's in it. There are allo people who have to navigate really strong desire discrepancies and have to negotiate complicated boundaries around intimacy, physical intimacy. So it's not just unique to us. That's just a good relationship. I always find it funny when an allo person sees my relationship content and they're like, this would be helpful in my relationship too. Like, yeah, like just be have a good relationship. It's not like ace specific. So another thing that I think is important in both of our projects is that both center they both clearly center aceness, and so our aceness as people becomes a part of the story that we have to tell. And since it's talking about pride, an important part about pride is you have to like share yourself with the world. Like you have to be vulnerable and open up private parts of yourself to the world. And I wanted to hear a little bit about how you feel about being like an ace writer, someone who is in a public space and sharing work, and also your personal experience as an ace person as part of that. What has that experience been like, and how do you feel about that?
It's definitely very strange for me to be sort of like a known figure in this community. I'm a very private person. Like I didn't tell my in real life friends about this event until today. Um, and it wasn't that I was like ashamed about being ace or anything. I think it was more for I didn't want to be someone's Google. Um,
Mm.
I didn't want to like come out and then have to field a bunch of questions and all that, because I know we talk about, we are not your experts, but a lot of people will not take the time. You have to feed it to them, and I just didn't want to have to deal with that. And if someone asked me, I would tell them, but it was also something that like wasn't super relevant to what I was doing at the time. I wasn't doing like ace centric events because there weren't any.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's being an ace writer is interesting to me because the few ace books that I had read when I was sort of going through my turmoil still had like ace characters eventually compromising with their partners, and I was like, yeah, that's great, that happens, ace people can enjoy kink, sex, whatever. But I didn't see one where it was an ace character who did not want that and still ended up in a loving relationship. And I really wanted to put that out in the world. And there are books like that now out now. Thank everything for that. But at the time, it was like, this is something that I need to put out in the world because it's something that I needed. And if I'm feeling a lot of these very personal, very deep things, another ace person is going through the same thing, and I just want them to know that it's okay. They're okay. They can find the happiness that they're looking for if they want it.
I love the idea of putting into the world the thing that you are looking for. I feel that way about I Am Ace. Like it's the book I would have needed, and it's the book that I would have wanted. But I love what I really love about your project is it's putting into the happy ending story. It's putting a story where people do get what they want into the world where that wasn't necessarily there before, or not as visible. And what I think is so lovely about that is sort of you living your life and then writing the thing that you made. You've added to the story about what we all now know it means to be ace. Like you've added that chapter to the big ace story that will always be there for people behind you to see that. And you're expanding what people can imagine as possible. I think that's like enormously a beautiful thing and a very powerful thing about writing. Um, I also find it really weird that I have to be like, I often joke, I'm like when we recently moved to Ohio, and so like I'm meeting a new set of people, and I sometimes joke like I feel like sometimes I have to say like when people are like, "What do you do for a living?" I'm like, "I'm a very public asexual. Like that's my job." Now is just being public ace person. And I'm also very a very private person too. I'm very shy, which you would never know from my online life, but like I'm super shy and very introverted. It's all very weird to have a lot of strangers know everything about me. Uh, that's super weird. But
Yeah.
it has been really like, but what I find, and maybe you experience this too when people like connect with you, but the more that I've shared my personal story, the more people share their personal stories with me. And I've gotten to like really connect very deeply to ace folks, especially like in a grateful way where they're saying, "Hey, thank you. I didn't know I felt alone before, but now I don't feel alone because I connected with you that way." And that makes all the uncomfortable personal stuff feel worth doing. Yeah. Have you had that experience with people who read your book?
Yeah, I get messages from people saying they were just very grateful that there was this loving relationship. And again, the conflict was not centered around her asexuality. But it is very scary and vulnerable to have this book out, where my friends and family can see it. I remember every single time one of my school friends, expresses interest, I'm like, don't perceive me. This very vulnerable part of me. Like, you watched me cry over a math test. It's different when it's like an internet stranger. You don't have any basis for who I am as a person. But this person that I grew up with, is now reading this very, very vulnerable part of my soul, essentially. And I'm not ashamed of it, but it's very like this would not come out in a conversation, really. Um, so yeah, it's I'm learning to be better about it because I would like to pay my bills. But it's been very
Yeah.
like so weird how you can feel more comfortable sharing things, with strangers and having those kinds of conversations with strangers. But thinking about having one of those conversations with my friends just terrifies me.
No, I relate. It's very hard. So on Thursday, I'm driving down to Louisiana, where I'm from, to visit my family and see my friends. And I haven't seen most of my Louisiana friends in, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, I guess. So I'm gonna go through all of that because in that time, I've come out, I've become a dad, I've like my whole life is very different. And um yeah, like I'm going to this birthday party with a bunch of May birthdays. So I'm just gonna be in this big one party. Gross. I don't want to be at a party. But I'm gonna be at this party with a bunch of my friends for that I haven't seen in many, many years as this version of me. And I'm scared to death. I'm gonna have to like, I don't know, drink something, or I don't know, take like some kind of like a something, a Klonopin or something, just to kind of get through. It's very vulnerable. I can be aced out on the internet all day long, but that party scares me more than anything because I have to like show up as me, and also be in a room full of people, which like totally gross. I don't want to do that. Um, so in be like we're both working on our second books. We talked about that a little bit before. We're both working on the next thing, and I wanted to just talk a little bit about what's next. So where do you, as a writer and a reader and just an ace person in general, hope to see ace writing go from where we are? What do you see is still missing? What do you hope is added to what exists? What do you hope is next?
So I studied communications and media when I was in college. So I see things like representation in media. I also was a gender studies minor. So things like representation in media to me kind of go in phases, where the first kind of phase is you breaking out and being that thing that breaks the mold. The first gay character on TV, the first interracial couple on TV. Like there is something that breaks the mold first, and just having enough of those to where it's not special that you have a gay character on your show, having that established first, and then your sort of second wave of that is just allowing the same types of stories to be told. I'm on Twitter all the time, and I'm constantly seeing things like, let queer people be messy, let us be dramatic, let us be problematic. Why do we have to constantly model ourselves in our books and our representation? Like, if I want to read about a feral sapphic person on a pirate ship, I should find that feral sapphic person on a pirate ship. And I think we're heading towards that now with all of our books. There's enough ace books in the world where we've established, hey, we're here, we're taking our seat at the table. This is our seat. And we're just going to keep continuing making this not a conversation topic. This character's ace. That's it. Like, you can be relatable because you're ace, but that is not part of the plot here. So that's definitely what I'm wanting to see, especially in books, because I'm a reader. I've been reading since I used to get in trouble because I would read by the nightlight and pretend I fell asleep reading a book so my mom wouldn't yell at me. So just seeing book characters, especially being allowed to be ace and problematic, or being allowed to be ace and immature. Like, we are not the model of our sexuality. We're all different. And the more characters that we have, the more people see we're not a monolith. The more people see, oh, this asexual is sex repulsed, but this one is okay with sex. This one's not kinky, this one is kinky. Just showing that we are a wide variety of people and breaking down those stereotypes of us being like infantilized or us being prudish. That's really important to me as in terms of representation for aces.
Yeah, and I would add to that too. Like, I also want to see more of those. Well, eventually I'd like all of those stories to be told by ace people, and have a very diverse set of ace people telling those stories. Because I think like having like people who aren't ace write ace characters, especially if they write them well, it's nice to have that representation. But it's more important to have us telling our own stories and being in the spaces where we're telling the story and profiting from the story. Like, we should be the ones making the money from telling ace stories and making sure that ace folks are integrated into like the way we are in the world. I would also love to see more, and working on this, I would love to see more ace and arrow representation in younger stories too, like finding ways to introduce ace and arrowness to in a children's book, in a middle grade book, in a chapter book for elementary school kids, introducing those ideas about like the way ace and arrow identity opens up the possibilities for people, teaching that throughout. So it's not just something they encounter when you get to YA where it seems palatable, but because ace and arrow kids exist. Like, they're all of us who are ace and arrow adults were once ace and arrow kids, and so we can relate to like those stories. I'd love to see more of that happen across like the spectrum too. Is talking about your second project, do you have things that you can say about the next project?
So my second project is following another character from the first book, and she is an arrow ace person, but I'm trying to tackle a lot of things with her book. She is very conventionally attractive, and she has been promiscuous in the past, and just talking about things like how if someone is like very conventionally attractive, oh, what a waste that you're arrow ace. And also just going back to what you were saying about representation, like going backwards in age, just sort of normalizing that there is no such thing as a late bloomer. Like, it's not always a late bloomer. Sometimes you're just never going to get to that point, and we should not infantilize anyone who you might think is not at the stage of life or relationship that you think they should be in. And it will also combat the sort of allonormative, like, weird things that some people will put onto their children. Like, your 3-year-old son is not a Casanova.
Right.
Like, it's doing double the work there. But I'm having a lot of fun sort of exploring that side of things. because my first book was really just about accepting that people who don't like sex can still have romantic relationships. Going into this next book, where my character is very okay with not being in a relationship, but she has these very strong and intimate platonic relationships because I really wanted, um, especially for like a male female pairing, to be strictly platonic and not just because one of them, like, there in media there's always like an excuse for like two characters to not be together when they
Mhm.
wouldn't be, and I just didn't want that. I was like, they are strictly platonic. There's no excuse for them to be platonic. They just are, and that's something that I'm really focusing on for this next book.
I love that. My second book is a relationships book. I write in the introduction of it like there are two kinds of questions that I get asked as if for ACE dad advice. One is how do I navigate ACE identity, and then two, how do I have relationships. So the first book was all about the ACE identity part, and now I'm writing just about like how to have good relationships and through an ACE and arrow lens. And what's important to me with this second book is I think like if you go to like a bookstore, there are so many relationship books on the shelves, but none of them speak directly to Ace and Arrow people and say, all right, so here's how all this good relationship advice speaks directly to us. And I want that book to exist. So, and it's a YA book too. So it's also aimed at younger people too. I am such a fan of the YA audience. I think they're awesome. And I want them to have all the good resources and all the good books. Because I didn't have it when I was a YA. Now I am an OA, old adult. That is me. That is me now. So we do have some. So we're starting to get some questions. So I think we're going to shift to the questions to make sure that we have time for everybody. Um, so we'll start with this one from Hannah Joy. Who are some of your favorite Ace characters you've seen in media? Do you want to tackle that, Sarah?
Um, so I have not seen many like explicitly ace characters that say, "Oh, I am asexual," because I don't really consume a lot of like entertainment media. But like I have my headcanons. Like Elsa from Frozen is one of the best examples I think of an arrow ace character I've ever seen. I remember watching it and I was like, "She's arrow ace," and then you watch Frozen too, and it's like she's definitely arrow ace. I really enjoy her as a character because I think if we popularize this idea that she's arrow ace, this is a kids movie, younger kids can see it's okay and not weird if you don't want to play like house with the other kids, you don't want to pretend boyfriend in the third grade, you know.
Yeah. I, all of the normal ones that get said in this answer, I would agree with. A character that I really like a lot is a book called it's a TJ Klune book called How to Be a Normal Person. It's the relationship in that book. That book is just like charming and funny and very sweet. And I appreciated that it was a male couple, which I don't see a lot in Ace stories. So How to Be a Normal Person. This really, I think he does a really good job of writing the Ace character there. Another question. We'll come back to that one. What was each of your favorite part of writing your books? Do you want to tackle that?
um I really just kind of I love sort of thinking about my characters and sort of like how would they react to this, you know. I've heard lots of my friends say, "Oh, your main character's just like you," and so the other characters are an exercise in like how would this other person think. I really like putting them in situations with each other and seeing how my characters just bounce off each other. I think it's quite fun. It's quite self-indulgent to like doing that with your own characters, because I had to cut a lot from the book, and it's just fun to think about. Yeah, this can be a random short story that I put on like my website or something.
Mm.
It's just really fun to come up with those sort of, oh, what if they went to the park this day? Um, because even if it never gets read by anyone, you're in that headspace. Especially if you write fiction, you're in the headspace of your characters. You're remembering why you like them, and you're feeling okay because you're still writing words. You're not staring at a wall all day like I do.
Same. Yeah, I love that. My favorite part of writing, it was actually writing the very end. I won't share about what it is here, but the very last thing in the book was something I wrote very early on, but it was my favorite part of writing it, and it's my favorite part of the book. And I hope that when people get to it, they are happy with getting to it. So yeah, and if you can buy the book and see what it is, or go to your library. Your library should have it too. Um, go ahead and answer this one. Are there Arrow Ace events gatherings held yearly? So, Amy, online there are Avon, which is the Asexuality Visibility and Education Network. Annually does an online event with panels and things. But we have not quite built the kind of community that has in-person gatherings yet, because a lot of us mostly exist online or connect online. Not quite yet in person, but there are certainly online spaces where Ace folks are gathering and hanging out. This question is from Mary. What was the most surprising obstacle when writing or publishing your book?
So the kind of most surprise, this wasn't super big of a surprise, um, but I remember trying to promote the book on TikTok. I made like a cute little like transition video, and immediately I was like bombarded with like comments like, oh, you're indie, so you must suck at writing, or no one cares. And it was a lot of like just realizing people don't have anything better to do with their lives. Um, and having to go through that whole dance of just block, delete, because they'll just
Mhm.
keep making new accounts. All of my friends know my struggle with like, is this person okay? Can they just go touch grass and leave me alone? Because I knew I was going to be dealing with like some harassment, just being a marginalized identity online, but I didn't realize that you didn't have to be super popular for that to happen, because my TikTok's average 200 views,
No.
and that's fine. I didn't think there was enough attention on it to receive that kind of like harassment. So that was definitely the very surprising part, in terms of like publishing, was just it wasn't even like allo people that were talking specifically about the asexuality in the book either. Um it was also like trying to attack my identity, but they were just, my pen name is very, very white, but I am
Mm,
very clearly an Asian American. So it was just a lot of like, I don't need to explain myself to you, but you are assuming I have a privilege that I don't, so I'm gonna set the
mhm.
record straight. So yeah, I wasn't like, I'm not popular by any means, and I don't need to be. I mean, I want to pay my bills, but there is no there is no number that you have to hit to receive harassment. Like if you got a really determined fifth viewer, you don't have to have thousands of people watching your stuff to reach that milestone of hecklers.
Yeah, haters will find a way. They will they will find you. But block delete. That's the best way to handle it. Like unless you have the spoons for it, which I never have the spoons for it anymore. I'm just like, no, I'm not entertaining you. Um Surprising obstacle. I mean, I guess honestly, like the cheesy answer is the writing. That was the for me, that was the hardest part. Like I've written all my life, but I've mostly written plays. So this was the first book that I wrote. So for me, one of the biggest challenges was just kind of like getting my mind space into writing a book and tackling what felt like a very large project. That was the biggest thing. Everything else has been either something that is navigable or a lot of fun. It's been a cool journey, kind of entering into this world and experiencing the book, going from idea to like actually in somebody's hand. Do you do anything to signal your aceness in the world? A pride pin, ring, sticker on a water bottle? Yeah, I wear purple all the time. I mean, I am always wearing purple of some kind. Purple Converse. It just works out. I'm glad I'm ace because I love purple anyway, so like it just worked out for me. But yeah, like I have pins and stuff. How about you, sir?
I have like stickers on like my laptop, my water bottle. I want more ace themed stuff, but a lot of it I feel like is very like cheap Chotsky type stuff. Like I will get a black ring to wear, and no one else will get it, but we will get it. I do have like a denim jacket with pins on it that I really want to at some point wear to Atlanta Pride. I don't have enough ace pins though. I would love more.
Yeah, I've got like a lot of stuff in my kind of in my office, just like fun little ace stuff that reminds. Oh, this is my favorite. It just so happens to be handy. It's this really cool pin set. It's a queer pin, but also the ace pin, and they sort of fit together. The company is Pin Ace. It's very cool. They're a lot of fun. They now come in. You can get them in where they're three together. So I want to get the non-binary one in there.
Yeah, you can.
Tackle that on.
I have my ace flag up here. It's upside down because
Oh.
I like it when the purple's on top. Like I recognize that it's upside down, but I like the purple on top. And I always like when I do my emojis when I put the purple one first, even though I know like the black one would be first. That's the biggest thing of my pride is it's cut off right here. But there's my
I love
I'm
it.
in my office. This is not the bedroom. There's my flag up there, and like right on this other corner here, I have floating shelves of just ace books.
Awesome.
That's my little ace corner.
I love it. I love it. Yes, and now finally there are more ace books to put on the shelf. Other than each other's books, what ace representation have you loved seeing in other books? Looking for more ace rep. So I will Loveless by Alice Oseman. Just Alice Oseman. Go read Alice Oseman. Yes, Loveless is a wonderful book. I really love the ace representation in Claire Kahn's work. Can never let's talk about love. Great book. And it was mentioned in the chat earlier, but the book Ace is Wild by Amanda DeWitt. She has it. I love it. Yeah. Totally fun. It's one of those books where it's just ace people doing a cool thing. And that was a lot of fun to me. I really thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, the only other like I brought these out for talking points. Loveless was the first one where I felt really seen in that like a lot of people assume that ace people are robots with no emotions and like all these like horrible things about us, but I really appreciated Georgia's character because she's very loving towards her friends and she's not like rude or anything. She's not like holier than thou because she's ace. And I just really appreciated it for showing that and showing her journey into doing that because there is a lot of confusion when you're sort of navigating that, especially because she's also in her first year of university in the book. So she's navigating all these different things. So you're going to have something to relate to, whether it's the figuring out her asexuality or just being in a new place, new friends, new like challenges. I read this and I really like Ace is Wild because I just like ace kids being ace menaces. Like they're together because they're ace, but it's not a super big part of anything. That's just why that's just why they're friends. A fellow ace author, Lucy Mason, wrote Ace of Hearts, which is another one of this book is one of those ones where people are like, that's not realistic. Because it features an ace aloe relationship. But I appreciate that there is another book out there and it can show the different types of obstacles that do come from an ace aloe relationship. Like it's not always smooth sailing. So I think having different types of relationships shown is also really important. And it's happily ever after and it's very easily digestible. It's one of my favorite books. So I'm very happy I was able to plug Lucy.
So that made me think of a question before we get to the other questions around being an ace. So you are in an ace aloe relationship. I am in ace aloe relationships, and sometimes I feel a pressure not to necessarily talk so much about my ace and aloe relationship because people sort of see it as sometimes like being not ace enough or like me not not being ace enough by being in an ace aloe relationship. I wonder what like do you encounter that similar thing? And so how do you manage that response to ace aloe relationships? They're not realistic. You're not ace enough.
I really don't encounter that much in like my real life because again, like I don't like my asexuality is not something that like is super public like to my friends and stuff. So it's not like, oh, if you're asexual, like how does your partner, like that I don't get questions like that. I would expect to, like in the online world. But again, I don't think I'm popular enough where people are like doing that in like waves. But I've had people come to me and be like, you're in an asexual relationship. How did you make that work? I've had people sort of come to me with like not skepticism, but they're just curious. Like it's a zoo exhibit that I have an allo partner. Um, but I also enjoy being able to tell, other aces, here's what you can do to make it work. If you want to have a conversation about boundaries, with your potential partner, you can say, this is not me trying to end things. This is me seeing a future with you, and I want to push forward with you. And if we want to push forward, these are my things. And just again, being able to be that resource for someone is incredibly it's an honor for me because again, I didn't have this when I was younger, and I'm so
Yeah.
glad that I can help someone not be confused and depressed and miserable.
Word. I agree completely. So I'm gonna this one's gonna be for you. What's your favorite Arrow Ace song? I don't know. I don't have anything to answer. Do you have something?
I actually do because I make playlists for my book. So I actually asked on Instagram and Twitter what were people's favorite like arrow coded songs for my second book.
Mm.
Um, and one of my favorite ones is where is it? Is People Watching by Coon Gray. I really like that one. Um, Love Me That Way by Sabrina Sterling. Never Been in Love by Will J. And For Me by Dearly. All of those ones are just super ace and aloe. And it's very explicit that it's ace and aloe. Like, it's not like, oh, this could be talking about. No, this is very, like, I will fight tooth and nail to say these are ace and arrow songs.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, because I would not have had an answer to that at all. I love it. Sarah has like the book. She's got the playlist. She's like more prepared than I ever could have been for tonight. Here's a question. How do you respond to people worried about you boxing yourself in?
Um, I That's an interesting question because again, my identity is not sort of one that's visible enough where people are like, "Oh my gosh, how do you like?" Though I do think it is a way to again show variety in ace people in that like, "Oh yeah, this is a thing about me, but that has nothing to do with why I'm ace." I don't feel like I'm boxing myself into anything. It's just this is something if I didn't reveal it to you in this book, it's gonna come out in this book. Because again, and things are very fluid, things that were true for me several years ago might not be true for me in a couple of years. So boxes, I've never had to really deal with them in terms of like my sexuality or what people expected of me, but I could see how other people would have to deal with that, being in the relationships or having sexualities that are much more visible.
Yeah, and I would say like if people are sort of suggesting that you being ace is like boxes you in, a thing you can say to them is, that perception that you have is based on a misunderstanding about what asexuality is. So like you think that about me because you're holding on to misconceptions and stereotypes. Asexuality is a wide spectrum of things. It doesn't box me in. It doesn't limit me. It is. Oh, that's so fun. I literally had a post today about asexuality not being a limitation. It's not a limitation. It is just part of what makes us who we are. And if you can gently call this person out on their misconceptions, say that it's because you don't understand asexuality, or you're holding on to a misconception. I'm absolutely not boxing myself in. I am. Everything is as possible for me as it is for anybody else, and that is super important. Um, we still have a couple minutes, so if you have, please drop another question in. What I will do right now is share our links for the books because that's super important. Um, Let me just nope, don't do that. Oh, see, you're getting me like bad technology, Cody, is happening right now. All right, so here is here are the links for our two books. There is a link to grab Sarah's book, and there is a link to grab my book as well. Please, of course, we would love for everybody to buy our books just because we'd love for everybody to buy our books. But a great way to demonstrate that Ace stories and things by Ace writers are worth putting into the world and worth people investing in, purchase our books and show people that supporting us helps more things happen, not just more things from us, but more things from other writers. It's a demonstration that Ace stories are commercially viable and people are hungry for them, and they are, because like our books are doing well. So please check out both books. We would greatly appreciate that, but you're also supporting Ace creators of all kinds. Another question. What specific Ace stories do you want to see in the future? I would like to see more like I want to see Ace horror. I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm a big horror fan, and I have been thinking a ton about what Ace horror might look like. So maybe don't beat me to it, because I I would like to write that. Maybe I want to write that, but no, I'm Ace horror. I really like what would Ace horror look like, and what would those stories look like? I'd love to see that. I haven't really sort of seen that exactly, and that's a thing I'd like to see.
I also love horror books, and I will gladly wait for you to put one out because I don't think I could write one. I love scary movies. I don't think I can do it. I really want to see more Ace people of color, because Sharonda J. Brown talks about this in Refusing over here, and Refusing Compulsory Sexuality.
That book.
About like how Black aces and other aces of color, we are sort of boxed into this weird hypersexualization, or the opposite is like we're so desexualized. Like there's no middle ground, there's no room for that fluidity or for that spectrum of people that exists. So I really want to see more ace, like Black aces, Asian aces, Latin aces, just more than just like a very commercially accepted white person.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great like reminder of like why we are here. An important part, the essential part about International Asexuality Day, and also the live stream that inspired this event, is that the ace community is a global community. It is not just centered in the United States. It's not just Western, and it isn't just white. And thank you for mentioning Sharonda's book. It is so good. I feel like our like the two Ace books that I put into everybody's hand are Angela Chen's Ace and Refusing Compulsory Sexuality. I like like literally I put those two books in everybody's hand because I just think they're like so important. As someone who wrote an Ace 101 book, I think they're very important. Of course, we need them, but it is wonderful to see to have those two books as books that like further the conversation and take asexuality into deeper conversations, particularly Sharonda's book, which I think her book is important beyond asexuality. Like it's just a book that everybody should be reading because it says so many important things about our culture, and yeah, one absolutely fabulous book.
Yeah, I think like, the two books I recommend are these ones. How to Be Ace by Rebecca Burgess, and
yeah,
I Am Ace. I like this one's very easily digestible. Both of these are very accessible. Because I think with Ace and Refusing Compulsory Sexuality, they take on a very academic lens, and that can be very scary for some people who don't, they don't have a background in gender studies like some other people do. I really enjoy looking at things from a theory lens, but I could see how that would be scary for people, especially if you don't really know what's going on. So this is a graphic novel for those of you that prefer graphic novels. And I Am Ace, I've been describing it to people as like, if you Googled asexuality and every single useful search result came up, so you don't have to weed through all the weird ones.
I love it.
If I had this when I was younger,
Mm.
but maybe my book wouldn't exist if I had this. So, things work out the way they do for a reason. But I tab the heck out of that.
That, man, I love it. Well, and what I love that we are in a space where all of those things can exist, where books like Sharonda's and Angela's that are on the more academic side are sitting next to now books that are hitting that introductory 101 place in a convenient way, and we have ace romances and ace fantasies and all of these all these ace stories and ace experiences kind of sitting together. Someone is going to find an entry point that resonates with them. And even I want to say, like, even in the ace 101 space, like in the last couple months, there's been a slew of ace nonfiction books that have come out, and they're all kind of like answering some introductory questions and kind of like having some introductory conversations, but they're doing them in very different ways. And I think it's wonderful that there isn't just one. There are multiple books in that, like, I'm getting to know asexuality space. So you find the one that speaks to you. So I can think there, it's the Ace and Arrow Journeys by the Ace and Arrow Advocacy Project. Ace Notes, Sounds Fake But Okay. Like, all those books kind of came out at Ace Notes. All came out in the last couple months, and these are all books so you can like find some mirror for yourself in them, and that's like very useful. I am going to add one more time the links for the fundraiser part, which is the important part. Want to remind everybody again, tonight we have had this conversation because we are trying to support Aces Never Sleep, which was a campaign to help raise funds for global ace visibility projects. And if you can, $1, a couple bucks, whatever you have is useful to the folks who are raising this money. This is going to help folks in Italy, in Hungary, and in Nepal. So the links are there. I'll put them in one more time once we are done. But that is our hour. Sarah, thank you so much for this.
Something happened. Oh my gosh. What happened? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm hoping that I don't have to do anything about this. What is happening? No, this reminds me of like when you're in Zoom class and your professor's Wi-Fi kicks them out and a random person becomes the moderator.
Okay.
That's what that reminded me of.
Okay, I have no idea what just happened there. Sorry to leave you hanging, Sarah. Sorry. But like literally it just kind of kicked me out, which I'm not sure why. So I hope you were able to say all the bad things about me that you needed to do while I was away. Sorry, that was very, very weird. What a weird thing. What I was going to say is thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to get to talk to you and share some space with you, because I think the work you are doing is so wonderful and so important. So thank you for spending this time with me and with all of us. I really appreciate it.
I really thank y'all for offering me this space to do it. Like I said, I started like I'm pretty much a nobody. Like I came on the scene very recently, and like I told you, I've been following you for so long. And when you first reached out, I was like, is this real? um, so thank you to everyone for being so nice and just being a great audience too.
And again, I'll put our links there. Make sure you grab Sarah's book, and if you want to grab mine too, that's useful too. But especially support Sarah, because she's an independent writer doing the thing independently. Support that endeavor. Make sure that you are making it possible for her to create more incredible books for us. And if you are able, it is very, very helpful to donate a little to the Aces Never Sleep campaign. It does help people around the globe. They appreciate it, and we appreciate it too. Don't forget, you can rewatch any part of tonight's program at this link later. You can relive the moment when I disappear over and over and over again.
You can see me panic for like 2 minutes.
It's right there for everyone. But yeah, thank you so much. Please check out the links. I will send everyone who registered for tonight's program those links again, so they'll show up in your email as well. Thank you for being here tonight, Sarah. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Have a good night.